Internet media providers should mark content that misinforms or spreads falsehoods or untruths.
Providers should do that, but government and government actors should stay out of it.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
Welcome to the American Religious Town Hall meeting. I'm James Weingartner, sitting in for Pastor Lutz, who is being quarantined with a lot of the rest of you at this time. And we are here in a kind of an abbreviated fashion. We're calling it few and far between. We have limited the number of panelists so that we can maintain some social distance. But we're still here to have important discussions about important subjects, and we still have 4 panelists to comment on this important subject today. So let's introduce our 4 panelists.
My name is Canon John Peterson. I am an Episcopal priest, and I am canonically resident in the Diocese of Washington, D.C.
My name is Rabbi Dan Levin. I serve as senior rabbi at Temple Bethel in Boca Raton, Florida.
And I'm Tom Plumbley from First Christian Church in Fort Worth, Texas. I serve as the senior minister there. Congregation is a part of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ.
Hi, I'm Tony Matthews. I'm the senior pastor at North Garland Baptist Fellowship in Garland, Texas.
We're so glad that you're all here, and we thank you for appearing on our panel today. We have an important subject about the Internet today. The Internet is a wild and largely unregulated forum for the promulgation of every conceivable idea. Postings and websites have advanced the following positions: the flat earth. They have lauded child abuse. They've recommended political concepts that have been ruinous in various countries around the world. Due to a human tendency toward motivated reasoning, we choose facts based on our opinions and choose and wish to support our desired outcome. This has led to an internet culture in which we not only choose our opinions, but our facts as well. Many efforts have been suggested to rein in the propagation of alternate facts, but with little effect. The opinions of many are driven by the echo chamber they choose to inhabit. The outcome is strongly held opinions that cannot be rationally defended within generally accepted facts or history. So we have this question. 1, should the Internet regulate speech to verifiable facts? 2, how should people of faith respond to ideas that are not supported by facts? And 3, how can congregations engage with members and prospective members who hold to erroneous conspiracies and beliefs? This is an important subject because we see so many people in our society and culture that are believing things that simply are not true. Rabbi Levin?
Well, thank you very much. I'm reminded that at the very beginning, the Holy One had to choose out of God's toolkit how to build the world. And of all the things that God had at God's disposal to build the world, God chose words as the tool that God wanted to use. God spoke and the world came into being. And I think that that has always taught us that when we use words, we have to remember that language itself is a holy endeavor. And I think that we've lost sight of the fact that the use of language ought to be thought of in that same frame. And so one of the glorious things about the United States of America is that freedom we have to express ourselves. And that freedom to express ourselves should not be abridged. At the same time, free speech always has its limits, in which that we cannot exercise speech that causes societal harm. I cannot yell fire in a crowded movie theater. Do you remember there were once crowded movie theaters? I know that it's hard to remember, but when there were such things as crowded movie theaters, you could not yell fire and thereby endanger people if there wasn't actually an emergency. And if you tell mistruths about someone that damages their reputation or causes someone to impugn their integrity, that's also a banned form of speech. Speech is not unlimited. And I think that those who create platforms for people to advance speech have a responsibility to provide some editorial authority over what appears on their platform. In the same way, before I chose to study for the rabbinate, I worked as a journalist, and the newspapers that I worked for had a responsibility to edit the content to make sure that what was published in those newspapers was true and that they could verify its veracity. Similarly, I think that you don't necessarily limit free speech by saying, I'm going to let this thing be published, but I'm going to mark it as saying we question the veracity of what's being here, so that a person who is a consumer of that content is protected in the same way that there is an advertisement on the box of a cigarette that says this product could be dangerous. We have a responsibility to protect people who use products that could cause them harm, and I don't think necessarily that media is exempt from that. If you remember, there was a conspiracy theory that a certain pizza restaurant in Washington, D.C. was a hotbed for pornography and pedophilia, and the advancement of that conspiracy claim inspired someone to actually get in their car, drive to Washington, D.C. with guns to try to protect people that he thought were at risk, when it turned out it was completely bunk. So I think we have to be careful of what actually is put out, and not all expressions of speech are fair.
Reverend Plumbley.
Thank you. I'm not sure I disagree with anything that Rabbi was just saying. You know, my problem is when government actors step in and try to do it. That's where we have issues. You know, the old arguments for speech in the public square and the internet legally has been viewed as a public square, like a park where the founders of this nation, the writers of the Constitution, envisioned people on the village green, you know, being able to get on a soapbox literally and stand up and say what they wanted to. And the argument for that was basically that free speech is a pressure valve that relieves some of the tension. If you let people get it out, that's a good thing. And secondly, that open speech leads to the truth. Now, see, the problem is with that second part. It's not always leading to the truth these days. And in a divided society where there aren't always those editors that you had at the place where you worked in journalism before you went into the rabbinate. So we have arising within our society this push to for somebody to do something about it. And the issue is who? And some feel that government actors should be doing that. And my position on that one is no, they should not, because that, well, because number one, the Constitution is a limit on the government and not on private industry. And number two, that just gets us into a whole different area of difficulty where all sorts of other speech is squelched. Justice Brandeis long ago wrote in an opinion that our preference is a preference for bad speech or hateful speech is more speech rather than enforced silence. And I think that's still the case, but I agree that given where we are, something needs to be done about, because we've seen, electoral interference. We've seen fake news that has moved people to violence. We've seen violations of privacy in data and in all sorts of other areas. And we've seen in other countries the suppression of political activism by oppressive regimes. So government needs to stay out of it. The private sector, all of us working together with those providers, needs to be the place where action is taken to safeguard us.
Dr. Matthews.
Yes, this is a very interesting topic, ethics and the internet. I'm going to look at it from just a slightly different angle because social media is part of the internet, and I really wish that somehow the erroneous speech and the falsehoods could be somehow deleted from social media. But once you put something out there and it's not true, and I'm talking in particular between persons, if somebody is upset or they're trying to slander or spread falsehoods on someone, they could put that out on the internet, and before you know it, millions of people have it. It's gone, and then a person's reputation can be just damaged. I wish that something could be done where facts could be checked. That old saying, "Don't bother me with the facts, my mind is already made up." That happens with social media. And so my whole take on this is I don't know if it's possible to even regulate the internet to see what's verifiable. I just think it's such a large animal. But I have a deep passion about people spreading falsehoods. I've determined that I would not become an echo chamber of what's ignorant, but be a communicator of what's accurate. And I always tell people before you repost something, check it out yourself. And again, this is dealing with the social media side of the internet. So many people are posting things and it's not true. It could be conspiracies, and before you know it, your reputation is on the line. So I'm really passionate about this because I know people's lives have been destroyed. I actually call it anti-social media, because yes. People are depressed, and then you have to take probably 25 photos to get the right one before, it's just something needs to be done, but I don't know if it can be.
Canon Peterson.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to actually go back to the first sentence that Rabbi Levin spoke today because he was quoting Genesis, and I want to quote from John of the Gospel of John, because John picks up on that Genesis account in the creation. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him, not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. And it seems to me that that understanding of the Word and the createdness of the Word is absolutely so important, and certainly within the Judeo-Christian tradition, and how important that light is for us in this case. The question today is, of course, should there be regulations, particularly in relationship to the Internet? And the real reason why this topic has come into being is to protect children, as does the abridgment of any individual right for free speech. The major issue is indeed Internet and the Internet censorship in relationship to pornography. And those who are arguing the loudest in support of government regulations are those arguing to protect young people because it is so easy to be able to get onto different internet porn sites. And the issue here comes ultimately down to a decision that was made by the Supreme Court in a decision called ACLU versus Roe in 1997. And that gave total protection, really, to free speech on the Internet, which has, of course, opened up the gates in relationship to how is pornography used by children. There are in the United States Constitution, while the free speech is certainly protected, there's also, it's illegal for fraudulent advertising, obscenity, help wanted ads that discriminate against the basis of race, libel, and other forms of unauthorized disclosures. So free speech does not mean that anything goes, because there is that protection. And the question is how does one protect the young people, particularly those who are able to get onto the Internet and dealing with the issues of pornography?
Very good. Rabbi Levin?
So I think that all of those ideas are really important. And I think what's important is to remember that, as Tom indicated, the free interchange of ideas is, I think, the bedrock of what keeps us free and helps us to ascertain the truth. I'm reminded of an incident a few weeks ago, I should say, in the New York Times, where Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas published a fairly strong op-ed editorial in which he asserted that perhaps the federal government should send troops to put down some of the riots and the protests that were sparking all over the country. And there was an uproar about whether that op-ed should be published, because there were some that argued that the publishing of that op-ed was actually going to hurt lives, that if federal troops or if there was an overzealous attempt by National Guard members to suppress or to put down protesters, you could end up with a lot of people getting hurt. At the same time, there are others that said, this is a United States senator, and he should be free to express his thoughts in the same way that you can publish on the other side of that broadsheet the opportunity to express a different thought. And I tend to feel that we're best served by giving people the opportunity to express their opinions. But one of the things that's happened, I think, in our society is that the distinction between what is opinion and what is fact has been blurred in some ways beyond recognition. And so if somebody feels that they want to express an opinion using facts and it's verifiable, they can express that opinion, should be able to express that opinion. Even if that opinion is something that would rankle me at the depth of my core, that's what I think is the strongest part of our democracy. But at the same time, if someone is trying to advance an opinion using untruths or using misinformation, that's where I think there needs to be an editorial flag.
Reverend Plumbley?
Yeah, I think the problem comes with deliberate manufacture of misinformation, of falsehood, deliberate, which we saw take place from a foreign power trying to affect the American elections, as they had done in the elections, successfully been able to affect elections in other nations, deliberately creating misinformation and putting it out there under the name of somebody who appeared to be American citizen. It started getting around. People started reposting it. It just grew, and the question has become, how can we deal with this? And I think the providers, those who benefit financially from those platforms, have responsibility to police that and and they say they're trying.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly difficult task, but I think they know how to do it better than anybody else.
Thank you, Reverend Plumbley. Now let's go to a message from our sponsor.
We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching.
The Town Hall Estates, the American Religious Town Hall Meeting, are glad that you're watching. We're happy that you have the opportunity to participate in a free America. And so now we'll sum up our subjects on the ethics and the Internet, beginning with Canon Peterson.
Certainly, I appreciate the conversations that have taken place today and the different dimensions in which we've been able to consider the whole topic of the Internet and different ethical issues that are coming out as a result. One, in my own research and preparation for this program, as I mentioned, it was the whole issue of pornography. And particularly since the decision back in 1997 with ACLU versus RABBI, we have not had any specific protections for the Internet in relationship to young children. But one of the things that I would like to be able to say is that for concerned parents who are listening today, there is a filtering software which is very effective, actually, or mostly effective, to monitor Internet content that is made accessible to children without infringing upon the rights of other people. In other words, this software enables parents to put this type of software protection so that porno and other things like that are not able to be accessible to children, and at the same time then giving the right to other people who would want to see that type of material. And so this is certainly one of the considerations that parents can have when they are trying to protect their children and still not violate the rights of other people who would prefer to have that opportunity to see that material.
Reverend Plumbley?
Thank you. I believe that in the area of child pornography or pornography that's directed at children, that's simply beyond the pale and is worthy of no protection whatsoever. However, the bigger issue, or the issue that seems more at on the front burner right now with the upcoming election has to do with those who bear false witness against either candidates or against our country or against certain groups for political gain. And we need to recognize that each of us has responsibility, because that information doesn't get spread around unless good people spread it around. And we need to have some discipline, self-discipline in doing, in how we behave on the internet.
Dr. Matthew.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, you asked the question, how can congregations engage with members who hold to erroneous conspiracies or facts? I would just recommend not to do it publicly on social media. We see people fighting all the time on social media, and then, of course, one of the questions addresses how should people of faith the question, how should people of faith respond to ideals not supported by facts? And you know, just simply don't support it. Don't repeat it. Don't retweet it. Don't post it. And always look for the facts.
Very good. Pastor Levin.
So in 1787, when Ben Franklin walked out of the Constitutional Convention, he was asked, do we have a republic or a monarchy? And he responded, a republic if you can keep it. And I'm reminded of that because I think in order for us to hold our Constitution, our country together, it's going to require everyone on every side of the partisan divide to go back to certain ideals and truths that we used to hold sacred. One being the idea of truth as a value in its own right. There are so many who purvey falsehoods because it's convenient or because of political or economic or partisan advantage. And that cynical use of untruths or misinformation or propaganda may have an immediate benefit, but in the long run will tear our society apart.
Thank you, Rabbi Levin. We meld again as you finish your last comments. It just seems to me that we have in this country an opportunity to really have and experience some greatness. And the greatness is that we get to seek truth without filters from the government. But that puts a great deal of responsibility on us, that we have to seek the truth. And as people of the truth, we all profess to be people of the truth, yes? As people of the truth, we have to only subscribe to truth and not to error and misinformation. And so as we look at the internet, as we participate in social media, participate in the internet, we need to subscribe to the truth. Thank you for joining us. The charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitance. And the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America, we believe in civil and religious freedom, and not in theory only, but in reality. And now, friends, until next week at the same time and over the very same channel, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. May the God of all of us bless all of you.